Hi everyone, I'm Claire James, or CJ, Deputy MD at Skout, and I'd like to welcome you to this special edition of Shaking the B2B Tree. This year, Skout celebrates its 15th anniversary. That's 15 years of delivering B2B PR and marketing services to businesses of all sizes from all sectors. We've certainly had our fun working with clients and getting to know the talented marketeers behind each of them. We've been here for marriages and pregnancies to promotion and job moves, and even the odd marathon or two. For us, relationships are at the heart of everything that we do. You might hear our team talk about this a lot, and with good reason. We're proud that we have clients and partners that have been with us for our journey, with our oldest client partnership lasting well over 10 years. That's an incredible achievement for an agency. However, we can't talk about the past 15 years without the brains that brought Skout to life all that time ago, Rob Skinner. A few years later, he was joined by the inimitable Claire Lamb. Despite being like chalk and cheese, they have created a business that has flourished, hitting the 1 million milestone a few years ago. Today, I will be interviewing Rob and Claire, Skout's very own Bonnie and Clyde, and asking them about all things Skout in celebration of the company turning 15 years old. So, hi Claire and Rob, can you believe it's been 15 years already? Gone in the blink of an eye.
I'm not old enough. Can't be 15 years. I'm not old enough for that.
Can't possible.
Isn't that what you tell yourself? I'm just working backwards once I hit a certain point and then just work backwards.
Absolutely.
It would be really interesting to know, because obviously I've only known the pair of you for just over 5 years. It'd be really interesting to know what you both thought of each other the first time you met.
It's such a horrible question. It's a good question.
Do you mean the instant first thought, or like when you actually got to know the person?
Both. Why not?
I'm really quite worried about that.
I'm a bit worried this is going to end up like therapy, but go on. No, you need to go first now.
You go first. Ladies
Okay.
first.
You're right. Are we talking about our instant first impression? I don't remember thinking, it was only when I got to know you that kind of my first impressions are the ones that still remain today, really. So Rob is, anybody that works with Rob knows this, and I know that you'll know this, CJ, but he's a really deep thinker. And because he's a deep thinker, it makes him a brilliant problem solver. He's a brilliant strategist. And I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but actually, because he deep thinks and he's really great at strategy, it just means that he thinks a little bit differently. So that's what always surprises me about Rob, is that there'll be a certain challenge sitting in front of us and he'll come at it from a completely different left field way of thinking that it would never occur to me to do at all. But in terms of first impressions, well, he certainly had more hair. I knew that was going to have to come up, Rob, whether you liked it or not. Not much more, but some more. Rob and I have really similar backgrounds, so I think we were more surprised about the fact we'd never met before than anything else. So I think that our first meeting was about, well, do you know this person and do you know this person? And not being able to work out how we hadn't kind of bumped into each other in the previous life.
Very true. Yeah, shall I go? No.
Stop me talking.
Well, no, yeah, it's very true though. But I suppose when you were saying that, I was going to say it's worth pointing out that we didn't know each other in advance, which is probably quite an unusual thing. I mean, obviously we got to know each other, but before we kind of became co-directors of the business. But prior, it wasn't pre-Skout that we'd like known each other for years, or kind of worked together in the past, and that's how it came about. It was through a recommendation of a mutual former colleague, basically / friend. So, what did I think of you? So,
be nice.
Yeah, I will be. I thought, well, I suppose first point was very gregarious, very easy to get on with from like the word go, extremely hardworking, always, straightforward and fun. So what you see is what you get. There's no kind of particular hidden agenda, which I like. I think that appealed to me massively because, just wanted you want to know where you are with somebody when you're working with them, don't you, basically? And then the final one is a law unto herself, which I think is true. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing. But, Claire is like this sort of dynamo that is there who kind of asks you things in an unexpected way, which is actually quite useful when you've kind of only thought about things with a kind of one-track mind. So, yeah. So I think that kind of being that law unto yourself is actually a really strong quality. But they were probably obviously some of those were kind of initial thoughts. Some of them were things that kind of, as I got to know you more, I kind of realized, okay. But yeah, definitely that would be it.
But it's quite interesting. You're right. Because so two things that you said. The one is we didn't know each other before we kind of initially started working with each other. And that probably is really rare, isn't it? Most people kind of set up businesses when they know each other, or they've got an idea and they've worked on it in the background, whereas we didn't do that at all. I mean, I joined you'd already founded the company, so we were kind of in a different space. But the second one is, I think that you think differently as well. So isn't that interesting that we both think we come at it from a completely left field and then find the middle ground wherever that may be?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, probably accidentally, we both recognize that being different is actually really important. I mean, obviously that's what a lot of, business owners and exec teams say, that you need the variety, but it's so often that you kind of just appoint people in your image, and you appoint people in your image. And I think that, that can be quite a dangerous thing. And I think we've probably avoided doing that by being so different and recognizing those different traits, I guess.
I think it's really powerful to have that difference and the different ways of thinking, because it means that the team are learning multiple perspectives, and I think that's really important. So
and I think
it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I'd hope as well that from a team perspective, I know it comes with its own frustrations, of course, but I do think you're right. They learn from multiple perspectives, which makes them better at what they do, because they have the opportunity to think, well, it doesn't have to be this one direction, because we don't necessarily come at it that way. It can be in, they can take multiple streams or strands to achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah. Excellent. So I'm going to go right back to the beginning then now and ask you, Rob, about why you started, how and why you started Skout, and why is it called Skout? I know the answer to that, but it's just for everybody else to know why it's called Skout.
Why did I start Skout? I've often asked myself that question. Why the hell am I doing this?
Why the hell did I do it?
No, in all seriousness, I don't. Well, I have thought that sometimes. I think every business owner does, but I'm very glad I did. So, 15 years ago, I was working in a PR agency. I'd worked for them for 11 years, and I'd learned the ropes in many ways, because I joined the founder, similar how Claire joined me. I joined the founder about a year after she set up on her own. So it's just at the point where she had too much work to do herself, and she was looking to expand, but with a view to kind of growing it. And this was kind of back in obviously it was back in sort of late 90s, end of the 90s, basically. So it was around the whole .com boom. We were growing very fast as an agency. Then the .com bust hit and it got more difficult, but the agency grew very fast, and I was involved in that in a lot of ways. So I kind of learned the ropes, but I'd kind of got to the point where I needed a change, but I was kind of in denial a bit. I didn't really know where I was going. I was a bit lost. I was a bit stuck, because I got to quite a high position. I was actually MD of this agency, but it wasn't my agency. I don't know. My confidence was just kind of on the wane a little bit in that job. Didn't really feel like I was going anywhere further. I didn't know what to do about it. I wasn't like, right, I'm going to do it myself. I hadn't really thought about that. But I was talking to somebody involved in the business that I trusted about, like, what should I do? And he said, well, why don't you just set up on your own? And I was like, well, I can't do that. And he said, well, what do you mean you can't do it? Why can't you do it? You could do it like with your hands tied behind your back, which I wouldn't actually strictly say that was true. But, he was the one that made me think, oh, actually, maybe I can do it. So I gave it a go. I had bills to pay, young kids at the time. So it was like, well, I've got to do something serious. But, I wasn't just going to, just kind of go on a more kind of casual approach to work. So that's why I thought, right, it's got to have an agency feel from day one. It's got to have a name. It's not just about me. It needs to be something that gets bigger. So there was always that plan to do that. So that's kind of how it started. That's how I came about to do it. Like Claire said, I sort of recognize I am a bit of a thinker, a bit of a ponderer. So it was never going to be just like, oh, let's get started and go. So it was very much, okay, well, what kind of business is it going to be? What's it going to stand for? I suppose for business starting from nothing, I probably did put a lot of time and investment into that. And that's how I kind of came up with this idea about what was missing from a lot of PR at the time was, I think, as we were sort of moving to more, it was the birth of more internet-based publishing. So there was a lot of sort of big change in the focus of editorial teams. And I felt like it was sort of becoming easier to get coverage, but harder to get really good coverage, media coverage. And I felt like there was a need to kind of go back to basics and do more authentic storytelling. So this was before the world started really talking about storytelling. But, going back and finding more organic stories within businesses where you didn't have to kind of fabricate it or whatever, but, actually constructing stuff that was really interesting. And that was kind of the ethos. And so as in terms of how the name came about, it wasn't like, oh, I'll do something around that. It was more like, right, what am I going to call it? So I started thinking about my surname and the fact it's so Skinner. It begins with SK. I'm not going to call it Skinner PR because that would be a really terrible name.
No, glad you
But I was
didn't.
thinking, really, what can I do with it? SK? So it's got a bit of a flavour of me, but it's, just using that as a foundation, basically. Of course, there's hardly any words out there that start with SK. So I started looking through words that begin with SC, and I came across Scout. And I was actually a Cub Scout leader at the time, because it was my kids were quite young and they were in the Cubs. And so I thought, oh, that's quite good. And it fits with me. And then I was thinking, it actually works quite well with the kind of the idea of searching harder for stories, being resourceful, finding organic things, sort of foraging and stuff like that. But that's how it kind of stuck. And then obviously using the K from Skinner, I've made it different to just Scout with a C. It stood out, and that's how the name came about. So yes, that is it.
Brilliant. And then how did your partnership come about? Where did you meet, and at what point did you join the team, Claire?
Yeah. So Rob's just alluded to it. So at that point, when Rob was setting up the company, I was working out in Hong Kong. So I was working for an agency out there where I'd set up their offices in Asia. Financial market crash happened. Hong Kong was not a good place to be when the financial markets crashed. I came back to the UK and I was freelancing. I was living down south and freelancing for lots of other agencies, and for personal reasons made a move up north, basically. And as I kind of announced to my southern friends I was moving up north, an ex-colleague of mine, Anne Robs, or a mutual friend really, said to me, "Oh my God, I think I need to introduce you to Rob Skinner. I think you guys would really get on." Probably sits way in a different area to both Rob and I personality-wise. So the fact that he could make that connection between the two of us was really, really good. And I'm very glad he did, obviously. So I came up and kind of came across, I can't even remember where we first met, Rob. Oh, I know what it was. It was a coffee shop in Stockport. Rob came and said to me, I'm working on a pitch. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, of course. We worked on the pitch together. We did win the client. And at that point, I came in and started freelancing for Skout, at which point there was, I think, Rob, myself, who I think went off traveling eventually. And then Rob took on his first employee, which was Fiona. And I was still freelancing for a couple of years. But I remember sitting in a bar in Euston, coming back from a client meeting and Rob and I having a few wines. Rob saying to me, "I think you just need to come on board permanently, full time, forget the freelancing thing." And I was like, "Why would I do that? I can do whatever hours I want as a freelancer. I don't understand what would be in it for me." And then Rob was like, "Well, this, and this." And I was like, "Oh, okay. All right, let me think about it." And then the rest is history, as they say.
It took a bit of convincing.
So I think I probably came on board. It took a bit of time. It was only because freelancing is a great life if you want to manage your own time and you want some great flexibility. But actually, I think that was the thing. One of the things I said to Rob was, "But I've got this flexibility, and my kids are still young, and I still wanted to be around for, school plays and sports days and stuff." And Rob basically said, "Well, you can still do that." And do you know what? I think that was kind of the start of making sure that we built an agency that not even enabled our team to have a really good work-life balance and not to ever feel like they couldn't go and do the sports days or have to lie or take even time off to go and do all of those things that are really important. And I think it was that actually, Rob, that probably turned it. Was you were like, "You can have it, will be no different, I promise you." And actually that kind of went from there, really. But a big mention out then to Tony Patrick for bringing us together, if he decides to listen to this.
Yeah, he should do. We'll have to credit him. Yeah, as one of the.
We'll have to tag him in it.
Catalysts of what happened since. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's a pretty good account of it, really. That's how I remember it. And it was good to win a pitch right at the beginning, and that's sort of
it was.
I guess that sort of started things on a
it was. And I think at that point you were in the mill in Stockport, weren't you?
Yeah.
Got a bloody parking
the freezing mill.
On the way to my meeting. The freezing mill. Got a speeding fine on the way to meet you, I think, on the first time. I was obviously keen and eager. And then we moved, and then I think you decided you were like, "I'm set up commuting into Stockport." So it was like, we'll just move the offices to Mac. And it was perfect because it's in between both of us. Well, not you anymore, but
no, not anymore.
Not far from me.
But yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
There you go.
Fabulous. So then, what in your opinion, Rob, has been the biggest milestones in Skout's journey over 15 years? And I suspect there's probably a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like every day the milestone, really. I think, when you're running a business, it does, certainly in the early days, it does feel like that. It's like literally getting through a day and achieving what you need to achieve. So there is a degree of that rather than, I don't know, I found it quite difficult to pick one particular milestone. But I guess, I've actually put, Claire joining, I know it sounds a bit contrived, but it was a milestone because, it was kind of that recognition that business needed to be more rounded, to be a good business. And if I was just going to run it, if I was going to be like the management team on my own, that was never going to happen because, I've got one MO and that's it. So it leads me to challenge that. So that was definitely, a kind of big milestone. I think, moving to employee ownership, which we did in 2023, that was a big milestone. It kind of solidified a lot of our ethos, really, and the stuff that Claire was talking about from the outset of being a flexible employer, giving as much back to the team as we can, whether it's, in monetary terms or, in benefits and well-being support and things like that, which we've always kind of tried to put the core of the business. And then more recently, I suppose it's just an evolution of that, but we've just gone through our business planning, which we do every year, but we've kind of just readdressed our strategy a little bit to be less about external growth and more about internal growth, I guess, as a business, and say that what we want to do is actually optimize the team. If you don't optimize the team, then you might as well forget anything else. So putting people first, making sure the team are rewarded in all sorts of ways, making sure that their success is recognized properly so that they are in a position to become better and better and better. They're already great, but if we can make them even greater, then the benefit that will have in terms of the work, the quality of the work we do, what it will do for the brand, will help us to achieve our kind of broader targets. So, which for me is pretty momentous because that's probably been an evolution of 15 years of us kind of growing up as well. And every year we do it, we learn more and more about the process and how to do it right. So our plans are getting better every time we do it. Which is good.
They are, and it is wonderful to see. It really is, because the early days there was no plan. In the early days, it was Rob and I going, "What are we doing then?" and just working in the business. It was that's what we did. We just worked and worked and worked, and the growth kind of came. So I think we completely professionalized over the last 5 years. And seeing everybody else who's involved in that growth and having responsibility for parts of the business and them improving the way that they see it and what can be achieved, I think is a huge milestone, really is. I got quite a few. So I think winning Mila, I think, was a real milestone for us as a business, because I think it wasn't just about the fact that they were a household name. It was more about, it made us suddenly realize, I think, that we were capable of anything really, of big clients or doing stuff that is outside of our comfort zone, and not taking risks with clients, far from it, but putting forward ideas. And I think it's just that has just helped us really grow and grow our service offering, but grow and grow how we skill people as well, because they've got the opportunity to do stuff that's a bit different. So that for me was one of them. But I think my big one, and funny, Rob, because mine mirrors yours quite a lot as well, it's always about the people. Over the years we have hired and lost, amazing people. And I remember all of them in their different ways, because each one of them has always brought something completely new to the business, whether that's, a change in culture or a change in the way that we do something, or an experience that, that they've got that we hadn't had. But at the end of the day, it's all impacted kind of who we are now, because all of those lessons have kind of been or had been grown and incorporated into the business. And for that, I'm really grateful, because it just meant that I've the opportunity to work with just some funny, brilliant, amazing people along the way. So I really value their contributions to the business as a whole. And we could name shout all of them, but we haven't got time.
So the next one's actually is a personal question from me, because it's something that you don't very often get the chance to sit down and kind of talk about the burning questions that you might have sitting at the back of your head going, well, I wonder what that was. And I wonder, because, I freelanced for 16 years, and the thought never entered my head to turn my freelancing work into an agency, because it wasn't the space I was in. I called myself an agency because it was set up as a company, but it was never a direction that I really genuinely wanted to pursue. I was quite happy being an employee, but I was quite happy for those 16 years being a freelancer and all the flexibility that it afforded. But one of the things that I always struggled with the most was that the continual challenges you face as a freelancer. You're two phone calls away from disaster, was what an old boss of mine once said. 2 phone calls, 2 clients sack you, and then that's it. Everything's disastrous. Because when you're on your own, there's only you to rely on for that income, that you're not protected at all. So what do you believe have been the biggest challenges you've faced, either as an agency or personally over the last 15 years?
I've not thought about it from a personal point of view. From a professional one, honestly, every day can be a challenge. I mean, there is something that happens that you haven't factored in or thought about, and when you're faced with it, you just you climb over it. You climb over it, through it, round it, whichever single way. I think, I mean, the one that probably most people can relate to was obviously COVID. And like, do you know what? It was challenging, but it was also, I think, one of the most interesting times in my career. I think I was with Rob in that I lived through the dot-com boom and subsequent bust, but I was quite young still, and I was still quite junior. So I don't remember having to kind of make the business decisions, really. I was just dealing with, client fallout. But COVID was completely different because it nobody knew what was going to happen. We had nothing that we could look back on and say, okay, well, this is what we did last time, so then we need to adapt it in this way. There was nothing. There was no guidance. There was nobody that could tell you or project what the answer was going to be, so you know how to get there. And I do remember, obviously, we're all remote, and Rob and I just sit on these Teams calls every single day going, what do we do? What do we do today? How do we protect ourselves? I mean, we must have reforecasted and re-business planned every 24 hours. I mean, there was a couple of weeks, I think, in the early days where you were just like, okay, well, let's just check the numbers again. And we knew we were solid and we knew we were sound, but because we were listening, to all of the peripheral noise that was going on with all the other agencies, if you were an events management agency, for example, I mean, you had a really tough time. If you were a travel specialist agent, PR, and we were listening to all of this stuff, trying to learn as much as we possibly could. And I think in the end, we just kind of paved our own path in that we were like, we know we're okay. We know we're solid. What we need to do is keep our clients and keep our team really close. And that's what we did. And it just meant that we communicated much more. We shared properly with everybody what was going on. And I think that was testimony to the fact that actually we had, and I know it's a terrible thing to say because I know a lot of people didn't, but we did have a good solid year. And for that, I'm really grateful. And weirdly, I look back at it a little bit fondly. I don't know if I should, but I do look at it because I think we learned a lot. We learned a lot about, oh God, wait for it. I'm going to use that term, pivoting. We learned that actually the next day we would wake up and think, right, do we need to pivot? Do we need to do something else? And it wasn't. It was just like, do you know what? We're good. We know what we're doing. And it's sound. But I learned a lot. I really did learn a lot.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the same would apply, I guess, in terms of challenges. But I suppose, what else? I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is, when you set up a business and you run it, especially, I mean, going back to, I suppose, personality types as well. I am a very thorough person in certain ways. So it's like, it's all or nothing in terms of detail. It's like, you can't do half the detail and then leave it. It's got to be, it's either no detail or all detail in my head. So, and that's the point, I think, you end up with your head swells and it's like, oh my God, how do you describe it? Can I actually fit anything else into my brain, into my cranium when it's so full of forecasts, what ifs, what if, another what if and another what if, and, has this been done? Has this been done? Has this been done the way it has to be done? And I suppose that's a bit of a sort of control freakish personality disorder that you have to, well, certainly I'd say in the last 5 years, I've had to let go more. And it's been a conscious decision to let it go, bringing you in, CJ, just as an example, and you becoming part of the management team, Claire taking on different responsibilities, but also trying to push the client responsibilities more down into the team so that Claire and I can focus more on the business. And that has been that's been a massive challenge, but we've really got there with it now. And I think that's really good. I think we do feel now like we're in a much better place to actually shape and run the business properly, rather than, what a lot of agencies struggle to do, certainly of our size. We're not a big agency, we're 11 people, but to actually create that demarcation between working on the agency and working in the agency and actually being a proper management team. And I can't see how a 10, 11 person agency can do that without doing what we've done, but a lot of them do. A lot of the founders are still entrenched in client work and all of that sort of stuff, and goodness knows what their life's like, because I don't know how they find the time to do all of the other stuff.
That's not enough hours in the day to do both, is there? And I think we learned that about when did you come on? 5 years ago. I think that's when we realized that actually you just can't do it all. You can't create the best agency and run the best agency. It just doesn't work. So everyone needs a CJ. And actually, CJ, I'm going to throw that question back to you. So you said right at the beginning when you were asking your question about you were freelancing, and that was where you were. That was your brain. So what made you change then? What made you decide to join Skout?
I was in that position. So I had two really long-term clients. So I had one client that I'd worked with for nearly my entire freelancing career, about 15 years, and another one who I jumped with. So every time she moved, she took me with her. And
Nice.
she'd worked for 3 different companies in the period of time that I'd been freelancing. And then she turned around, she met me for a coffee one day, and she went, "I'm packing it all in. I'm going to go be a teacher." And I was like, "What?"
You can't do that.
And I was like,
Hang on,
okay.
you're paying my
So-
mortgage. You can't do that.
But exactly that. So, I was looking at it thinking, so the chances are when she leaves, there'll be a bit of all balls will get thrown up in the air. I have no idea where mine's going to land. It could land where it is. It could land miles away, or it could not land at all. So I need to protect myself. And so I started looking around, and then the real challenge when you've been freelancing for as long as I was, which is a lot of agencies won't touch you. You're 16 years freelance, so yeah, you're too interested in the freelance world, not really interested in somebody who's worked for themselves for 16 years. We want somebody who understands team culture and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, God, by which point I had 20 years experience in PR, more than 20 years experience in PR. And I was like, I know how to do this job. I know how to do it really well. So I actually took a mat cover job. So I actually went to work for a really big agency who had a small office in Macclesfield. Their main office was down in London, and I did a year's mat cover for them. And that got me back into that environment. So then getting back into working for agencies became easier after doing the year's maternity cover, because realistically, everyone else was kind of looking at me. And at that time, it was, wouldn't touch me with a barge pole, and I just couldn't understand why.
Their loss.
I don't understand how that experience is not valuable to somebody, because actually what it's done is it opened my eyes to not just media relations. I was doing everything when I was freelancing. I was doing really broad spectrum stuff, actually touching into areas of marketing that you wouldn't normally touch on in terms of PR. No. But I mean, I'm glad I've landed where I have. We were having conversations last week, and it's about feeling like you're part of the fabric of the company. It's a place I genuinely care about the results that we get. I genuinely care about the people who work here, but also I know that I'm supported. And whether that's supported by you guys or supported by the rest of the team, I think it's very much we do feel like we're all heading towards the same, which I think is really important, because you're a long time at work, aren't you? You want to enjoy it. Well, I do anyway.
You are a long time at work. Yeah. I completely agree with you. It's one of my basic tenets. I think when I said to Rob, I need flexibility and I need fun. I need to laugh at least half the time when I'm in the office, because otherwise I don't want to come to work. And I do.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Actually, what you were saying, because it relates back, just made me think of another challenge, which was a major challenge in sort of getting going, is actually building a team. It's really tough at the beginning. I mean, obviously, Claire joining early on was like I said, a big milestone, solid addition to the team. But then, there were others, but we also had quite a few false starts, which, with trying to recruit people. You're obviously a small agency, even people that we kind of knew or knew of us. So they knew our reputation. They knew one of us already. Found it difficult to get people to join and stay. So for some people, they got close to joining, and then it was like, oh, I got another offer from a bit more of an established agency. So I'm sure you understand, I'm going to go elsewhere. And it was like, well, first time, I understood it. The second time, it was like, actually, no, I'm really pissed off about it now. So do you realize how hard this is? And so I probably did. I probably fell out with a few people along the way because of that. But we got there, and look where we are now with a brilliant team.
We did. And you have to always work on the basis that the people that say no aren't the right fit, because they're not. They don't see the benefit of working for an agency like ours. So I'm never trying never to take those ones to heart, I think.
So I want to dig into something that you just said then, Claire, about the things that are important to you in terms of work, flexibility and fun. Tell me about some of the funniest moments you've had at Skout over the last 15 years.
Oh my God, honestly, the team make me laugh it is every day though. And do you know what? That's the absolute beauty about coming into the office, is the most random conversations I ever have. And I think it's because we're quite multi-generational. So, we've got 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And it's sometimes that they teach me, the younger ones teach me stuff like words I've never even heard of. I'm like, what? I got into a whole conversation with Izzy the other day about something. I won't go into it on here, but honestly, they crack me up on a daily basis. And that to me is really, really important in terms of some of the moments that kind of stand out. So I was thinking about this. One of the ones for me that still makes me giggle now is Rob nearly missing the plane to Palma. So we did an offsite in Palma a couple of years ago where we took the whole team. But we've spoken about the fact that you are a deep thinker and that you're incredibly well planned and in control. So when we got to the airport and Rob wasn't there, I was like, where's Rob? Alex is looking at me, Claire, you're looking at me, Claire. And I was like, and then I started thinking, well, he wouldn't have overslept because that's just not in his nature. Oh my God. What? And then I started going, oh my God, what happens if he's had a car accident? So Alex is phoning his wife, can't get hold of anybody. And I was like, right, we're just going to get on the plane. There's nothing else we can do. Let's just get on the plane. And as we literally was sitting on the plane, I get a text message from Rob saying, I'm on my way, I overslept. I was like, what? That's just unheard of. And he still do you know what makes me giggle is I remember sitting on the we were already in our seats and I'm looking out the window and I could see you running down towards the gate and then out. And as soon as you hit the tarmac, you just looked up and you went,
You weren't even on the plane. I was
still,
like, oh,
honestly,
like a few people behind in the end. But
still, mate, you were only a few people behind in the end, but it was hilarious. But then that reminded me of the fact that you and I have missed a plane before when we came back from a client meeting at Amsterdam. And then this will tell you a lot about mine and Rob's different personalities as well. So we come back from a client meeting, we're in Amsterdam, we're on the last flight, we were on the first flight out, last flight home. Obviously, I'm sitting in the bar. I was working, we were both working. And it was delayed. EasyJet, there you go. Delayed flight. So we're sitting there and the airport's getting emptier and emptier by the second, wasn't it? And then the bar closes and Rob's like, do you know what? Maybe we ought to walk down to the gate. And I was like, well, I think it's still showing delayed on the screen, but okay. We walked down and the screens where we were sitting in the bar were not working properly. And when we got to the gate, they were just shutting the air bridge and refused to let us go on. But this is what tells you the difference between Rob and I. I go into furious mode. So I just go off into one, how dare you? We've been and there was like 20 other people with us that had missed the flight as well because we were all sitting in a part of the airport. I go off into one, start ranting and raving, and I turn around and Rob's got the laptop out. He's already booked us into a hotel by the airport overnight, and he's already just about making a reservation for the first flight out the next day, whilst I'm still lecturing the poor EasyJet staff who are, completely beyond their control. That one still makes me giggle. It wasn't funny at the time.
No.
But it does make me fun. Yeah, it does make me giggle now.
Yeah.
What about you?
That was a good one. Me. Yeah, I was trying to think because there's so many laughs. I actually, I think, it does come down to the people, I think like you said, and, thinking about it's just all the silly off the cuff moments. It's the unplanned things that happened or were said and stuff like that. You mentioned Fiona earlier. So obviously Fiona worked for us for 8 years. And I think, she was constantly cracking us up during that time with silly things. Or there was a couple of occasions I remember. Well, one was like I went to a client meeting with Fiona. This is sort of a typical kind of thing. And then after the meeting, we were both starving. We were looking for somewhere to go. And we saw a McDonald's. We were like, I said, do you fancy McDonald's? So she was like, yeah, fine. So we went up to the drive-through. And I was like, what do you do? I was just like, had this like blank moment of like, what do you do? How do you order a drive-through? Because it was like depress buttons. And she was going, goodness sake, Rob, you've got 3 kids. How can you not know how to get a drive-through? And all of this. And it's just like those kind of moments. They were like Fiona moments were great.
They were.
Do
you remember the Manchester tart moment?
Yeah.
I'm still waiting. So we were at an awards dinner. I think we were up for an award, weren't we? Up for best agency, whatever it was. Early days. Me, Rob, and Fiona sit there at dinner. Obviously, grand 3-course meal comes out. Had starter, had main. There was a couple of bottles of wine involved, I know. And then Rob looks at the menu to see what dessert is, and he goes, Manchester tart? I didn't even know what a Manchester tart was, to be fair, being a southerner. Manchester tart, that's not a posh dessert. That's a midweek dessert. Fiona just looked at him and was like, what on earth do you eat in your house midweek that Manchester tart is a midweek dessert? She was very good at keeping it real. Very good at keeping it real.
That was really funny. So there's definitely quite a few Fiona-isms. Fiona moments. If you're listening, Fiona, thank you for those.
If you are.
Those moments.
Still making us giggle.
There's not like one thing, I think. It's just the fun of, banter and silly jokes and puns and stupid things like that you do to lighten the mood every day. So, yeah.
It's also the people, though, isn't it? Because there are people that there's one person in particular I'm thinking of at the moment that the things that she comes out with. You only get fish and chips by the sea in Wales. What? Really?
Yeah, we've got some characters in the
Yes.
business.
There are. Definitely.
Notwithstanding the in and out of the taxi on the Christmas do, that's got to go down as one of the best.
Forgotten about that one. Yes, I had forgotten about that one. There has
Let's
been
not get started on drunken
let's not go down
occasions,
that.
because I think there's a few that could be regaled, definitely from my side too.
There's certainly a few dodgy drunken dancing moments. So yeah, for sure. Over the years.
Well, Scout awards nights, we were always like the first on the dance floor, last off.
Always.
Anything without an award to show.
Made friends with the DJ. Always.
Yeah, personal friends with Swint Boom.
Absolutely.
Personal friends, tried our best.
Well, that segues really nicely then into awkward or random moments. I mean, that could be a random moment, but I mean, what are some of the most awkward or random things that have happened over the last 15 years?
There's few. I don't know if this is so much of an awkward moment, but more of a one that just sticks in my head, really. So Rob and I went to meet with an old school law firm. I don't know if you remember this, Rob. And I think we got into the kickoff meeting. I say it's old school because their senior leadership team were all male. There was no female at all. There was not many female lawyers, actually. And we go into the meeting, and you've got obviously the management, the managing partner, who's basically the MD, the boss, who was a lovely guy. Turns out to be a lovely guy subsequently, plus a few other senior partners as well. So I was the only female in the room. That's never been an issue for me ever. I never really view it as a thing. It just sometimes it is. But because he was the managing partner, he basically refused to make eye contact with me at all. So every time I spoke directly to him, he answered to Rob. He was sitting next, I think you were on my left, answered to Rob. And I remember, Rob, I think you even nudged me or something. There was a smirk of some sort. And I was just like, hang on a second, I'm not having this. So it got to the point during the meeting where I talked more than Rob deliberately, so he would talk back to me and he still wouldn't. So it was the point where I was kind of physically moving myself like closer to Rob. So I was in his eye line so he couldn't avoid me. Still didn't talk to me. And it still stands out. It still comes into my head, now and again when Rob and I say that, we'll go into, maybe meet a new client or into a new business meeting and we instantly know which one of us is the best fit for the person that's sitting opposite us. So that person will lead the meeting. We don't even have to talk about it. One of us goes, oh, right, they're that kind of person. So that will work with Rob better than it will work with me. And we do it that way. But I think that was probably the start of it, was this guy that just really refused to even make eye contact or even talk to me. Crazy. You can imagine how I respond.
Yeah. I don't know what to add to that. I mean, I struggled with this one a bit, but I think, there's, apart from like stupid, awkward moments where stupid, funny things happen or whatever. I suppose going to the previous question, but we did have a client. It was our most well-dressed client. He prided himself on his attire and being, very crisply dressed and everything. And he turned up to a meeting, turned around to kind of pull his chair out, and he still had the price tag on his trousers. So that was quite. I was like, I won't mention his name, but new trousers by any chance?
New trousers. It's hilarious.
So I think Fiona was there for
that one too.
Probably didn't help.
Do you remember getting stuck in the snowstorm?
Oh yeah.
We had a client that was based up in Harrogate. Yeah. We nearly got stuck on the top of the M62 in a massive snowstorm. But both of us were paralysed, weren't we? In terms of, do we keep going or do we turn around? Do we keep going? Yeah. We spent like literally 15 minutes in the car. Neither of us would make the decision about whether we were going to keep going or turn around. We did keep going. We made it. We did make it.
Yeah, we saw it.
That was a very random moment.
Yeah, indeed. The only other one I put is it's more the awkwardness. It doesn't actually fit exactly, but it's working with clients where they turn out to be not very nice, basically. Oh. We've had a few over the years. I think every agency has the same. I don't know what it is. It's just what I can put it down to a lot of the time is, most of our clients don't fall into this. So I don't want anybody listening to this thinking I'm generalizing, but the odd time, people make mistakes and then they kind of use being not very nice to cover the fact they've made a mistake and try and blame it on the agency or point to the agency as being the problem. And we've probably had it 3 or 4 times over 15 years, so we've been pretty lucky. But when that happens, it always just kind of really gets to me, because I think we're just people. You're employing us to do a job. Just like, some people are horrible to their staff as well. So sort of the same applies, but we're all human. Why don't you just treat people with a bit of respect and be honest? If you've done something wrong, don't try and, scapegoat the agency because you've been a bit incompetent, basically.
Do you know what? I think it's never a truer word, isn't it, Sid and Jess? It's just be nice. This whole thing about being kind. Everyone makes mistakes. Agencies and clients, everybody makes mistakes. It's how you deal with it is the issue. And, one of our values is honesty, isn't it? So if we make a mistake, I'm always the first person that puts my hand up and says, yeah, I didn't quite do what it needs to do there. Let's resolve it. Nothing's, irreparable. It really isn't. So I think my phrase would be, don't be a dick, because really it's just not needed. It's not needed. We're all human.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. So I challenge you both now then. Describe each other in 5 words.
I have to freely admit, I had to turn to ChatGPT for some help because I knew the words I wanted to. So I put it into ChatGPT and it just came back with the same. So that was rubbish, but it didn't get me thinking. So what I've come up with was not where I initially started. So my 5 words would be challenges me to be better.
Ah.
Oh, there you go. And that wasn't ChatGPT. ChatGPT came up with a strategic creative problem solver. And I was like, but that's what I put in. Anyway,
I'll take either.
Yes.
It's fine. Mine are separate words. I was going to do one of those little poem things, not.
That's what I was trying to do. But I need to do
Poem class, yeah. CLAIRE. That's 6, isn't it? I put committed, talkative, empathic, challenging, and a mate.
Oh, that's lovely. I like this. Well, maybe we need to print these off and stick them somewhere.
Absolutely.
Oh, not literally, Rob. Not literally.
I was thinking make it into a badge, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to tell all of our wonderful listeners what your proudest moment has been at Skout to date.
Shall I go first on this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I thought a lot about this because obviously there's a lot of material to go at, but I kind of thought actually it comes back to the beginning probably, and actually for me, winning the first client that the business ever had probably is that first proud moment, because it's like, yes, we're on the road, we've set off on the journey, we've got work, we've and actually sort of doing a pitch. I did the pitch by myself. I was still in my old job at the time, won it. It was actually quite a decent budget. So like this is great. What a great start. But then also a few years, probably about 3 years into working with that client, we also won quite a prestigious award, B2B marketing award, for a campaign we did for them, which was a complete out of the blue shock. We weren't expecting to win it. And, that was like, wow, okay, well, look what we can, a bit like the Mila moment that Claire mentioned.
Yeah.
Look what we can actually do. We are, we're not just like a couple of people trying to pull something together. We are actually really good at this, which, and we probably should say we should know that anyway. But, when you running something small and it all feels a bit cottage industry, it tends to feel a bit like big agencies are, doing amazing stuff. And actually, we were the ones that won it. So that was great. We kept that client for over 10 years. But we, really lost them through acquisition. So it was, that's the work we did with Wax. I'm really proud of what we achieved there.
And it's testimony to the fact that, I think Wax would have said it as well. Well, I know they do, that it was their reinvention the whole time. Just because you've been with someone for 10 years doesn't mean to say that you're doing the same stuff. It was every year was a new, fresh, whether we brought on other people to look at it, to see what they could come up with, there was always a fresh new strategy. So testimony to the relationship you built with them, Rob, as well, definitely.
And how about you, Claire?
I've got a few, really. I think hitting the million the first time was a real milestone for me, or proud moment for me. I think because Rob and I talked about it and we'd kind of set that as a goal for us. So actually achieving it, I think really kind of just gave me a minute, if that's the right phrase, when I just got to sit back and thought, we did it. The EOT, I think, was I'm really proud of that. I think it's, we were looking for something that would give our staff and the team, some ownership and some insight and a common goal, and not just somewhere to go to work every day. And I think the EOT was a great way of doing that. And then I think the last one is really, it's the little things that people say to you. So Rebecca, I know you'll be listening, but when Rebecca said last week when we were in an interview with somebody, I feel like I think you said it earlier as well, CJ, I feel like I'm part of the fabric of the company. And it just means that, they've worked, they get it. They just, they don't, not just turning up every day, they really want to be here. And I think that's really amazing. And the other one was Lottie, who used to work for us, who is still a Skout friend, is coming in soon to freelance out of our offices. And I remember having a coffee with her a couple of years ago and her saying to me, look, if you ever need someone to come in and talk to your team to tell them that the grass is not greener somewhere else, I'm your woman. I'm really happy to do that. And it's those little moments where you think, when people come, people go. And when people go, it is sad, but we want them to be brilliant and we want them to go on and be brilliant. And it's so lovely when you get that kind of feedback that comes back and says, I did thoroughly enjoy my time at Skout. And now I really recognise how brilliant a time I had. So I think those are, few proud moments there.
You want your team, past and present, and probably more emphasis on past, actually, to be the advocates for your business. So the way that we are with our clients, we want our clients to become advocates of ours, whether they're still a client of ours or not. You want your team, whether they're still a team member or not, to be advocates for the business, to walk away and go, it's a great place to learn, or it's a great place to grow, or it's a great place to just to work. No matter what stage of your career you're at, the start of your journey, the end of your journey, whatever it is, it's a brilliant place to work.
Definitely. Yeah. That's it.
Totally agree. It's like, and I think that's reflected in our attitude to people, which is not just about what you're going to do for us. It's like, what can we do for you, for your entire career? The people that leave, that we really don't want them to leave. They would always be welcome back, and we always make a point of saying that. Whether they actually ever do come back or not, it doesn't really matter. But it's an open door, different chapters,
always.
Isn't it? So
yes, absolutely.
World.
Brilliant. So a wrap-up question for you both, which is about the future. So 15 years down, 15 more to go, at least.
Well, I will be completely grey. If the menopause continues in the way that it continues, I won't remember anything, but it's okay because I'll have an AI assistant that will.
Very true.
So aside from the grey hair, what does the future look like?
What I'd like the future to look like is for Skout to increasingly become a kind of torchbearer for best practice employment in PR, really. It's not always an industry that really cares about its staff. Certainly historically, it's not been seen as being that. I think we're in a really good position to be that agency that, stands out from the crowd and invests in its team first and foremost, so that team are rewarded as they should be. They're in a position to succeed as much as they're going to. And then the knock-on effect of that is our work gets better and better for clients. More clients come to us and we grow as a result. That's for me, that's the perfect.
I think mine's completely mirrored in that. The people first approach basically means that you can do bigger and better. I think for me, it's about empowering the team to think that they are capable of anything, and feeling like they work in an environment that supports them to achieve anything. And I think that's the key thing. And I think, with that combined with the EOT and us just taking that people first approach, that's what I would like to see continue. Growth mindset, people owning their destiny. Yeah, that's it. What I want to see is Skout team becoming the master of Skout almost. It becomes their destiny.
Yeah.
Well, that was big thinking.
Well, that's what we do. Big thinking. Think big.
Act big.
Think big.
Brilliant. Thank you very much both to Rob and Claire. That's all we've got time for in today's episode. And thank you for braving some of the questions that were put to us. And a huge happy birthday to Skout. Here's to another fantastically successful 15 years.
Thank you very much.
So remember, guys, for more episodes of Shaking the B2B Tree, you can head over to our dedicated website page. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast special.